getting into our first subject on the day, talking about Monday night's games, where we had 4 games. 3 of them were very entertaining, in my opinion. We had one blowout win that I didn't watch a second of, really, to be honest. And it does sort of tie in with a topic we were talking about yesterday. So getting into these games here, first of the night was the Toronto Raptors playing the Indiana Pacers. They come out on top here, winning 130-122. Scottie Barnes had an incredible performance leading the charge for the Raptors in this one. He posts a triple-double, 21, 12, 12, with 5 blocks as well. He had a couple very impressive blocks on the perimeter as well, blocking a couple 3-point attempts from the Pacers as well. So an extremely well-rounded performance for Scottie, and his ability to initiate for others on offense, I think, has been such a huge step in his development. He came into the league with a lot of the physical tools, and we're seeing him more and more develop these skills that make him a true franchise cornerstone. And especially with the defensive upside that he has, it makes him a real candidate to be a perennial all-star. He was selected to his first all-star team during this year's games, and it was as an injury reserve, but I think that it could be, the first step in a line of different all-star appearances for Scottie. Now the Raptors are sort of building around him as they've gone through this retooling. Not that the dynamic was weird necessarily with the previous version of the Raptors, but power dynamic-wise, between Pascal Siakam, and not that OG Anunoby was ever necessarily a true initiator of the offense. They had a bunch of guys on the Raptors, Fred VanVleet as well, who left during the offseason, where these were all guys that were on their championship team in 2019, right before Scottie had entered the league. So they sort of had the seniority almost a little bit over Scottie Barnes, but now this is his team, and they've also done a very good job of filling up the rest of the team as well with a lot of potential young talent. It was an incredibly well-rounded performance from the Raptors last night in their win. 7 of their 9 players that got minutes scored double digits. That was including the entire starting lineup and some key contributions off the bench from Grady Dick and Ochai Agbaji, who are both young players that they recently acquired. Grady Dick through the draft and Agbaji at the trade deadline. But Dick had just about possibly his best game of the season. He scored 18 points on 7 of 9 shooting, and obviously he was, for the most part, automatic on offense, but it went even deeper than that. I thought that some of the hustle plays that he had as well were really impressive. He grabbed a couple offensive rebounds that he fought for, and I was really impressed with this one play in particular in the fourth quarter, where there was an errant pass between Barnes and RJ Barrett down low, but Dick was crashing in from the right corner, and he jumps out of bounds, catches the ball, tips it back into Barrett for an assist there as Barrett finishes it off with a layup. So I thought that was, we're just seeing he hasn't gotten a ton of playing time necessarily this year, but especially now that the Raptors have offloaded some of their top-end talent, it opens up more opportunities for him. And somebody who impressed a lot when he was at Kansas during his freshman year last year to make him a late lottery pick. Now we can maybe see some of the offensive potential with him, and if he's going to provide this level of effort on a night-to-night basis, he could absolutely be a key player for them in the coming years. Agbaji, like I mentioned, was also very solid in this one. He made specifically a handful of plays for himself, moving without the ball to create opportunities for himself. I thought it was really good. It was those backdoor cuttings. It was relocating along the three-point line. He scored 13 points in this one, so not necessarily tremendous, but somebody that another Kansas guy was seen to have definitely a lot of value when he was coming into the draft a couple years ago, and after taking a step back in this past season as opposed to his rookie year, now he can maybe find a home for himself and get a little bit more opportunity with the Toronto Raptors. So that's something I'm specifically watching when it comes to this team. So again, just these promising performances from their young guys that they acquired over the past handful of months. And that includes Quickley and Barrett, who are both very good. Barrett specifically led the Raptors in scoring, so I thought that, again, very well rounded. This goes a little bit to the Pacers, who have done are definitely struggling on the defensive end. That's no news there. They allow 130, so obviously you're going to have a lot of guys for Toronto here getting theirs in the scoring department, but still promising from a Toronto team that is going to be trying to find their identity in the coming months. Benedict Mathurin and Pascal Siakam combined for 61 in the loss. Mathurin tied his career high with 34 points in this game. He was tremendous, but really what hurt them, other than, of course, the subpar defense, was the fact that Tyrese Halliburton had a very rough game. He went just 2 of 11 from the field, 1 of 6 from 3, missed a pair of free throws late in the fourth quarter. That, it wasn't, of course, the reason why they lost the game, but just sort of goes to show that we've seen him really struggling. Now, he obviously missed a bunch of time with a groin injury, I believe it was, and he just hasn't necessarily gotten his legs back under him quite yet since returning from injury, and we're seeing some of the play fall off. But specifically when it comes to shooting, he's shooting in the mid-70s from the free throw line, which is interesting. I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe it's the longevity of this season. He's been their go-to guy for the majority of the year, so I'm sure that at a certain point it does get physically taxing, and we are going to just sort of monitor. The Pacers, they overachieved for a lot of this year. They've been a much better team the past couple seasons when Tyrese has been on the court. So I have no worries about him whatsoever in terms of the overall success of him and this team, but definitely going through a little bit of a rough patch personally in terms of Halliburton there. But the overall significance of this game, we mentioned on the show yesterday how Trae Young's injury could open up a path for the Nets or Raptors to try and make a run at the play-in tournament. These are two teams that don't own their first-round picks in the upcoming 2024 draft, so they are going to be trying to win as many games as possible down the stretch and try and get some valuable postseason experience in this upcoming set of playoffs. The Nets dominated the Grizzlies 111-86 in that game. So, the Grizzlies at this point, we know they definitely struggle on offense. Credit to the Nets for coming out, but this game was just never close. And the Nets and Raptors both pick up wins here in the Hawks days off. So we are looking at a 3 and a 3.5 game differential between the Hawks and the next two teams. It's the Nets, who are 3 games back. Raptors are 3.5 games back. And two teams in the Nets and Raptors that, while their records are still pretty bad, only 22 wins for each of them respectively, but they do have a potential to steal that 10 seed and potentially give themselves a chance at playing a high stakes game or potentially even making the playoffs. So something to watch there as we also monitor the situation with the Hawks in Trae Young's absence. Next game from last night, the Detroit Pistons versus the New York Nets. It was a wild game that came with some controversy at the end. The Pistons came into the game as 11.5 point underdogs, and yet they led by 1 with 37 seconds left in the game after former Knick, recently acquired Piston, Quentin Grimes hit a tough layup over Isaiah Hartenstein with 37 seconds left, as I mentioned, and the Knicks came back down on the other end, and chaos broke out He misses a three with about 20 seconds left. Quentin Grimes saves a tipped ball to pass it into Simone Fontecchio. He had it stolen from Josh Hart. And then as the Knicks tried to reset, Dante DiVincenzo threw the ball away to Asar Thompson, who got in the passing lane. He takes a dribble, starts to lose control a little bit, and then it was DiVincenzo who lowered his shoulder into Thompson's waist, and the ball pops out, forces a turnover, no call on the play. Amidst all the chaos, Brunson finds Josh Hart under the basket for an and one layup that ended up being the game winner. Now, all of this took place in the span of 18 seconds with 3 different turnovers. Josh Hart actually missed a couple free throw opportunities here, but the Knicks were able to grab a couple offensive rebounds on both of those misses to help the clock wind down and end up running that game out. So a crazy ending there. The Pistons put together a very good run in the second half to make this a game, and this feels like one that, for a team that has struggled so much this year, this one really hurts to let get away from you. And it sort of stems back to us, of course, with the comments that happened post-game to that play where DiVincenzo, basically minus actually wrapping his arms up and around Asar Thompson, pulled off a pretty good form tackle. Would have been a great hit and form tackle in the NFL, but he gets away with it in this one, and the crew chief referee came out after the game and said that this was a missed call, that they got it wrong. So, it's one of those situations where it's hand up, we missed that one, and yet there's nothing that can be done about the result of this game. Monty Williams was furious on the court, and then in the post-game interview went on a pretty legendary post-game rant. He sat down immediately without taking questions, started going on this rant. He called it the, quote, absolute worst call of the season, and then after finishing up the rant, he walked out of the post-game press conference. So he is definitely going to catch a fine for this one, but honestly, I think it was worth it. He also just received the massive contract during the offseason, so he can afford it a little bit more than other head coaches can. But, this is a very frustrated Detroit Pistons team. In the rant, he talked about how he's been sending referees clips from their games about how it's been unfair, is another term that he used to describe it. So they fall to 8-49, and they are currently on a 6-game win streak. This is, keep in mind, the team that lost 28 straight games earlier this year. And yet, despite all of that, I still don't think that their team is quite as bad as their record shows. I've talked about it before. I think that Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, and Jalen Duren should be 3 legitimate cornerstones at each position for the Pistons going forward here. Cade had a really good game. He had 32 points, 8 assists. He sort of cooled off. He started the game, it was 6 for 6. He was blazing for a while there, but he ended up going 0 for 3 from the field in the fourth quarter, but still a very promising performance. I think it's interesting with Cade because you can see, especially as the Knicks are sending a lot of double teams his way, the level of maturity that he had some bad turnovers in that game as well, but these are sort of, learning moments for Cade as he is becoming the true franchise guy. Like I mentioned, Ivy and Duren I'm also very high on, but Cade is the number one, and I think that, going forward here, these are moments that he's going to have to learn from. Passing out of a double team is such a crucial step if you are going to, be the franchise guy. Quentin Grimes was also terrific for them last night. He had a slow start offensively, but he had a massive impact on the defensive side of the floor throughout the game. Finished with 3 blocks and a steal, and then scored 14 points in the fourth quarter to help lead that comeback against his former team. He's someone they have under contract. He's, I believe, still on the younger side. He can't be older than mid-20s, I would imagine. Only in his second or third year in the league. He's going to be turning 24 in a couple months, playing in now his third season. So he's somebody that could definitely be an interesting piece for them going forward. Simone Fontecchio is a pretty solid scorer, role player that is going to be a restricted free agent. I feel like they could definitely keep him around and build on that. And Ausar Thompson as well. If the shooting becomes a thing for him, he actually did knock down a big corner three in this game to help them in that comeback. He could be a real piece for them as well. And I thought that he had a really impressive handful of defensive possessions against Brunson. I do see the image there. The Knicks have been struggling as of late. They do pull out with this one, but they have lost 6 of their last 9 games. Sort of got away with this one, but I'm not really willing to put too much stock into their play until we see them fully healthy again. Julius Randle and OG Anunoby have not played since January 27th. They are still a top 4 seed in the East, and we can evaluate them more so when they do get their starters back, but has not been the prettiest stretch for the Knicks. Final game here, the Heat versus the Kings. The Heat were without Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier, Nikola Jovic, and Jason Richardson. A bunch of these players were suspended after a brawl with the Pelicans a couple days ago, so they were very short-handed. They trailed by 3 at halftime, but they absolutely took over the third quarter. Closed that third quarter on a 17-2 run, outscored the Kings 36-19 as a whole, and entered the fourth quarter up by 20 points. And then the Kings made a run during the fourth quarter with a pretty impressive zone defense that for a team like the Kings, who have not been a tremendous defensive team, I feel like during these past couple seasons when they've really, jump-started their way back into relevancy, they forced tons of turnovers. So at 9:14 left in the fourth quarter, Bam hit a crazy fade with the shot clock winding down, and then the Heat did not hit another field goal until 4:24 left in the game. Shout out to the Kings fans, where just prior to that Bam shot, Fox hit a 3. They were down 17, and you could hear the crowd still really being into the game. I think that helped ignite them, but also what helped ignite them was Keegan Murray. He was the catalyst for Sacramento in this game. He started the game 6 for 6. He got cold for a stretch there when things were spiraling out of control in the third quarter, but in the fourth quarter, he went 4 for 5 from the field, had at least 11 points. I am blanking on whether or not he had any free throw opportunities, but had at least 11 from the floor. And he played some incredible defense. There was a sequence where after a De'Aaron Fox turnover, he had a chase down block against Caleb Martin. Then on the inbound right after, he played really good defense against Jaime Jaquez to force a miss. Domantas Sabonis then quickly turned the ball back over, and Murray again made the play by cutting off a sloppy pass from Duncan Robinson to Jaime Jaquez, and he took the ball the other way for a transition dunk. This was late in that fourth quarter. The Kings ended up getting the lead, the deficit that is, down to 2 points with 3:41 left in the game. But it was Jaime Jaquez, the rookie for the Heat, that sort of calmed the storm for them. He had 2 big-time buckets. He had a tough fadeaway over Kevin Huerter on the block to extend the lead to 4. And then following a missed layup from Fox on the other end, he came back on offense and had a beautiful up and under move to get past the defense of Sabonis. He was terrific on the night, finished with 26, 5, and 3 steals on 12 of 17 shooting. Bam was able to help close it out on both ends with a big bucket and a big block as the Kings sort of ran out of time for their comeback. The Heat have now won 4 straight and 8 of their last 10, and with their win and the Pacers loss, they jumped to the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. All of this is, of course, fluid, but the Heat are playing their best basketball of the year, especially as we go down the stretch of this season. I think that they are definitely a scary team. Maybe it's a little bit of PTSD as a Celtics fan, but I do think that they are the biggest threat to the Celtics come the playoffs. And the Bucks picked up a couple big wins over the weekend. They have a very tough schedule ahead of them, but I think that when we get eventually to the playoffs, the Bucks can definitely be in that same contention tier. But I think that the Heat are, when I did my last power rankings, I had them in the sleeping giant tier, and I think that they are starting to wake up. So that is all I have on Monday night's games. We are going to be taking a quick break, and when we come back on the other side, we're going to be getting into some more NFL talks. So stick with us. We will be right back.